Heartbeat Alaska on Radio is brought to you by Alaska Family Housing Services, featuring a new prenatal home. Alaska Family Housing Services provides the comforts of home while you're in the city for education or health care. For more information, call 1-888-453-4833.
It's Heartbeat Alaska. It's Heartbeat Alaska. You can hear it from Sitka to Barrow. Gather around for Jeannie's show. It's the Aleut, the Indian, and the Eskimo. It's the Aleut, the Indian, and the Eskimo.
Hello and welcome to Heartbeat Alaska Native News and Native Information. I'm Jeannie Green. I'd like to welcome our viewers in the state of Washington. We're broadcast out of KWSU-TV, public television in that state. And if you're a first-time viewer, welcome aboard. You are going to experience a wonderful program. We travel across the north, sharing stories from remote villages, from Alaska natives, from natives across the north, and soon we'll be featuring stories from your state as well. If you'd like to email me, the email address is right there on the screen. We love feedback, and we certainly appreciate being invited to your reservation in Washington. On today's program, we talk about global warming, how it's affecting our native people here, the way we live, the way we see our world and experience our world. Things are changing. We travel to Nondalton, Alaska today and visit with the good people there and experience with them how they're adapting to those changes. Nondalton is a Denina Athabascan Indian village of about 200 people. Originally located on the north shore of 6 Mile Lake, the village was relocated to the west shore in 1940 because of wood depletion and growing mudflats in the surrounding area. The people of Nondalton live a subsistence lifestyle that surrounds fishing, hunting, and berry picking. They have always practiced conservation and preservation of the fish, wildlife, and natural resources of the area.
They used to tell us kids, you know, you guys have to learn to do this. You guys got to watch carefully and watch what we're doing. Because in the future, you guys will be using these things. But I was a kid, and I never thought I'd use stuff like that. But we used to do what they used to tell us to do. Well, I really didn't get into it until after I got married. It's when I started putting up my own fish, canning my own fish, putting up my own dog foods during the summer. And then that's when I realized this is what Grandma and Mom meant. Never thought I'd, do these things. But then that's where I learned all that was from Grandma and Mom, especially my mom.
The traditions and beliefs of the Athabascan people were handed down through the ages by their oral history. It is only within the last 100 years that these traditions have been documented and written into stories and accounts. The language and belief systems are not entirely unique to Alaska. Their perceptions of nature and human being interaction is shared by all Athabascans in Alaska and their relatives in the lower 48 states as well. By their very nature, every subsistence hunter, fisherman, and gatherer is a conservationist and preservationist. Above all, they maintain the health of their food sources in the traditional ways. Their ability to fish, hunt, and gather is directly dependent on how they treat the resources. If they misuse, abuse, or show disrespect for the fish and game, it will affect the harvest of the next season. To waste any animal or fish was forbidden and was thought to bring bad luck to the hunters or fishermen. If there is little or no fish and game, the entire population could face starvation.
When we were young, growing up, and in my time, they told us, when you hunt, animals, you're not a good hunter, I mean, the animals give itself up to you if you need them. That's the only time you go after them, when you need them. Then you use everything what it provides, that's usable and edible, and then when you get them, you treat it with respect, you skin them in a certain way, and treat the bones and meat, as good as you possibly could, out of respect. And like bear too, if you kill a bear, you take his bladder and his eyes and you bury it. It's a traditional thing that, more bears will come, which is too many coming now, But, that's what they used to tell us. Caribou and moose, same thing, you treat it with respect. And all the animals and the plants, everything that living, they said, is, I don't know how they know it, but it's providing us, the stuff we need. So treat it with respect, even plants, trees and animals, everything, is helping us to, subsist, because that's all we had, and I guess we had to learn to take care of it, to make sure, it's always around when we needed it.
They used to never let us touch salmons when they're cutting fish when we were kids. When we were taught to cut fish with like trouts, graylings, you guys practice on those before you guys could touch the big fish. The only thing they used to have us doing was tie fish bones and hang salmon eggs to dry for the dogs. That's all we were allowed to do with the salmons.
Today, many of the residents of Nondalton still live a subsistence lifestyle. However, some families don't because of economic pressures such as the lack of a boat or motor or four-wheeler transportation. These families become dependent upon other family members to get fish and game for them. The downstream effect often means that the children of these families do not benefit from the knowledge passed on from their elders. Without that knowledge, they will not have the skills they need to survive in a subsistence environment.
Well, what bothers the people most, I think, here is, jobs. Before, when I was young, we used to go trapping. That's how we could make our money. But now, every young people just sitting around waiting for a job. They don't go out in the hills no more.
Nondalton elder Agnes Kuzma put it so well when she stated that even though the kids nowadays know how to read and write, if you put them out in the wilderness by themselves, they would not know how to survive. It's hard for these youth to understand conservation or preservation when the word subsistence is so foreign to them. One example of preservation is that the people of Nondalton would open up beaver dams that were blocking salmon spawning areas for red salmon. If the beavers did not move off to another area, they would be taken. Salmon need to return to the very same place that they were hatched to spawn again.
The spawning down here was Kijik was the major place. All along this river, all the way down to Nehel and Uliamna. Probably go all the way down to Kujak and places like that. But the main places right here in Uliamna, Lake Clark, I noticed that there were really major sockeye salmon, just like a paradise. And they came pretty heavy.
These spawning grounds are the traditional areas where the people of Nondalton get their brown bear each year. So it's apparent why assuring a spawning ground for the sockeye salmon is so important. This and other methods of conservation are hundreds of years old. They are still applicable today and are practiced with success.
All the way up to Lake Clark, where there's shallow spots, where there's gravel on the bottom, you'll see fish spawning. And that kind of activity goes on all the way up to Kijik's a kind of major place for salmon. That's why even in the fall time, they used to go after bear, hunt bear. They go up in that area to get the bear when they want, when it's time to get it. And that's probably late in October sometime, because the bears fatten up and everything.
But no matter how much these Athabascan people practice preservation and the conservation of their natural resources, they are faced with a dilemma that is beyond their control. Global warming and a changing planet are causing concerns that must be addressed.
Mom, Dad, someone's gonna try and get me to take drugs.
Want to do something about it?
You're gonna have to make me tell you where I am and who I'm with every day. Don't like the sound of that?
Tough. You gotta be the grown-up.
Kids with involved parents are less likely to try drugs. So ask them who, what, where, when. Questions. They're the anti-drug. Call 1-800-788-2800 for more information. Sponsored by the ONDCP and the Partnership for a Drug-Free America.
The Aleut, the Indian, and the Eskimo.
You can see now. You can see how far the glacier was up on a mountain, and you can see it move way back now.
What we don't realize is this kind of significant change here from what we used to see before. It's either the temperature maybe is gradually getting a little warmer, and it's melting away the snow and ice and glaciers.
These photos show a huge change in a glacier over a 37-year period. The photo on the left was taken in 1958, and the picture on the right in 1995. You can see how much the glacier has receded over a short amount of time. The same is true for many of the glaciers across the world. The concerns go beyond the melting glaciers. The changing climate is affecting our people's food source, our lakes and rivers, our ways of life.
30, 40 years ago, even 20 years ago, there was a lot of salmon. Everybody, got, in those days, like 20, 30 years ago, everybody used to drive dogs, and they used to put up, dogfish, salmon for, food for the dogs. And they get enough to last them through the winter, and plus some for themselves. Sometimes they get, 1,500 to 2,000 fish, each family. And now you're just lucky if you get, 100. 100, 200, and it's so, the past 20 years, it's been really, getting depleted. I don't know how, there again, we don't know. We don't know if it's due to the global warming, water getting too warm, right? I don't know what's going on there, but there is lesser fish now than there was.
We had a strange fall, and the water dropped, and then we got a lot of rain, and then as the water started raising, and the weather really didn't turn cold, so we had high water up through December and first part of January. And now we should be catching all kinds of fish. Now we're just getting grayling.
I noticed that the salmon is not going back into Tasmania River. Tasmania River here, they start going into Picker Lake. That is really unusual. I never see salmon go up in Picker Lake Creek. Yeah. They're spawning there, and they act like if they had no choice but to go to Picker Lake.
Studies show that warmer waters increase bacterial and fungal infections in salmon. Warmer waters also cause salmon to burn energy faster. The result is that many of these salmon die en route due to exhaustion and infection. And many stressed salmon that do not make it to their spawning grounds fail to spawn. The effects of global warming can be seen not only in the salmon runs, but also in the vegetation and numbers of other animals that have provided a source of food for the people of Nondalton.
There used to be a lot of moose even around the village, you know. Anytime we wanted moose, you know, if we needed it, like for a potluck or whatever, you know, we went out and got it. But now you go out and you can hunt, you know, all day, and you don't see no moose.
Certain years there's berries in certain places, and there are certain years we don't have berries at all. There are certain years we have more blueberries, and there are certain years we have more cranberries. And there are certain years we don't have none at all.
During this last 10 years since that they came back in here, the caribou did, but then they're just not all the way it used to be.
All of a sudden, you know, they were right here in the village, you know, they were all around the village, down the river, and all over there was caribous up the lake where there was no caribous before. There were caribous all over. And they were around here for about maybe 5, 6 years. In the past 2.5 years, you know, they started phasing out, you know, and now there's no caribou around.
Well, they always said if you have lots of snow, you'll have lots of berries. So this year, everybody's just wondering if we're going to have any berries because there was no snow.
And that is perhaps one of the major concerns that is on everyone's mind in Nondalton, a village that averages 64 inches of snow per year. With the Earth's changing temperatures comes changing weather patterns and changes in not only the climate of an area, but changes in the kinds of animals that inhabit the region.
We never had a problem with roof beetles before, and they're coming through, you know, killing off the trees, you know, and so that's something that, you know, I never saw in this area before. And another thing that I never saw, you know, in this area about 3 years ago, I saw a hummingbird. I guess they're down in the southeast, but you would never see no hummingbird up this far, at least in this area anyway.
At fish camp I saw a couple of bugs that I've never seen before. They're long in there, and after I caught one of them, I found out they were like little locust grasshoppers. We don't have them around here, and we have grasshoppers, but they're real small. They're little green things, not like big fat ones like these were. These you see in the lower 48 and other part of the country.
This is not no normal winter around here. You get about 2 or 3 foot of snow, but it isn't, you know.
Well, the water was kind of high, you know, all winter, which, you know, well, it sometimes happened, but, you know, it drops during the winter and the ice falls in. But this year, you know, it seemed like it stayed, you know, warm and rained all winter, and the lake froze over and it all melted except for one little piece right outside the village here. And I never saw that happen, you know. I saw warm, but, you know, at least ice stayed, you know. But this year was just different. I never saw that before. There was no snow for the past two years. There was snow, and before that, maybe about 10 years ago, weather started changing. You know, really, from, you know, we used to get about 3-4 foot of snow. North wind blows, you know, maybe 25, 30 all the time. You get 20 to 30 below zero. You get up to like 3-4 foot of snow, and now you don't even get 2-3 inches. This year we didn't even get an inch of snow, I don't think, all winter.
January started to get a little colder, and the water started dropping. Everybody's worried that it freeze with the water high, which is bad because you get all the shell ice. And this kind of what happens is that you have a lot of ice, shell ice along the beach, but fortunately the ice dropped before the water froze, but now the pressure of the ice and freezing is pushing the ice up on the beach, which is a good sign for that the old people would tell you that with the ice coming up on the beach in the spring means that there's going to be a lot of salmon. It'll be a good year for salmon. So seeing this, all of this right now, I'm pretty excited about the summer that we probably have a good run.
At least that is what everybody in Nondalton is hoping for. This graph shows how the predicted ocean temperatures may affect the feeding areas for sockeye in the future. The light blue and red areas indicate the areas that are currently occupied by sockeye during the winter and summer months. However, if the predictions of global warming become reality and the ocean temperatures increase to a certain degree, the sockeye will be limited to feeding in the areas in red only during the summer months, possibly restricting their migration home to their native rivers. For the Athabascan people of Nondalton, Alaska, there are changes occurring that will forever affect their way of life. For the people who live between two lakes, nature is taking care of itself, healing itself. As the earth warms up and the climates change around the world, the people of Nondalton will adapt and overcome, as they have for centuries. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another Heartbeat Alaska. And once again, welcome to our new viewers in the state of Washington. Heartbeat Alaska now is aired from one coast to the other, from Washington all the way across to our good friends in the Seminole tribe. Hello, my good friends in the Seminole Nation. We're aired on 5 reservations in Florida. God bless every single one of you, and thank you so much for joining us once again for Heartbeat Alaska.
It's Heartbeat.
Heartbeat Alaska on Radio is brought to you by Alaska Family Housing Services, featuring a new prenatal home. Alaska Family Housing Services provides the comforts of home while you're in the city for education or health care. For more information, call 1-888-453-4833.
For Jeannie's show.